The PTR changes of October, they didn't update the title, October 31st. Militia duration still being tinkered with. First they buffed it from 40 to 42.5 seconds, then they put it to 45, and now they put it back to 42.5, so it's back to version 1. Bash was addressed. They realized that it's all a little crazy. So the bonus damage has been reduced. On level 1 it stays the same from 50 to 40 on level 2, and from 100 to 55. But that's not all of it, because in the reverted changes, the best thing, Bash stun duration is not increased anymore, not the 3 seconds for heroes, the 6 seconds for units, and also the chance for Bash stays the same at a flat 25% chance. So in general, Bash in comparison to the live patch just does more damage now. Devotion Aura also addressed. First they had it to absurd numbers with 369, then they did 346, and then they realized that's a bit odd, so we do 2, 4, and 6 now. Still buffed compared to the version we have at the moment, and we'll talk about if that's necessary or not. The priests get addressed, and I can tell that our friend Death Note, who loves us very much, is the happiest person on earth today, because the priest cast point time got reduced from 0.5 to 0.4, and the heal cooldown got reduced from 1 to 1.1 seconds. That means that if you want to trigger a dispel, healing is less likely to interrupt that, and it should be more responsive. Dondo will tell us everything about it once we're done with the patches. The Archmage gets a strength per level increase from 0.8 to 2. This is something that we proposed in the community patch notes for a little bit of extra HP early in the game. Not only is Death Note the happiest person today, but also Mr. Remo Demo. He wants the Paladin to have higher movement speed for years, and the Paladin gets higher movement speed up to 300. I can spoiler, this also goes for the Dreadlord, so we got 4 heroes now with movement speed 300, Pit Lord, Blood Mage, Paladin, Dreadlord. Demon Hunter. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. This is gonna be controversial. Remo Demo get his will here as well. The mana burn range has been reduced from 300 to 250. In combination to that, Immolation is not nerfed anymore when it comes to damage. It's back to the 6 value on level 1, and they forgot a 1 at the end at level 3, so it doesn't do 7 damage on level 3, but that's obvious, I guess. Oh!
Also one more change I think they forgot to put in there, actually. Or, yeah, Druid of the Claw has Sandra's initial mana as well. It is in the editor, they just haven't written it in that patch.
Yeah, correct. They forgot another thing. A little bit sloppy today, Blizzard. Was the Halloween party a little excessive? We'll see about that. Fairy Dragons get addressed. Previously, the range of Mana Flare was reduced. They reverted that, and instead, the max damage is reduced from 100 to 80. And since it is splash damage, that kind of scales. This is, if that's good or not, Dondolare will tell us all about it. Mark of the Talon, which is the Fairy Fire ability of the Crow form Talon, doesn't require master training anymore, but instead adept training makes it a lot easier and faster to use. The big hooray for everyone that is not undead is that the Nerub Tower Frost attack now only slows heroes for 3 seconds instead of 5 seconds. A big nerf to the Nerub Tower that people wanted for years. If that's the right thing, we'll discuss it. Dreadlord movement speed, we talked about it, a little bit faster. Spirit Walker build time was reduced. This is 38 seconds in the live version. Blizzard wanted to put it on 33. People said, oh, this is maybe a bit extreme, so they put it on 35. Also, a buff that was nerfed is the Walker Adept training, which is not in general increased, but only increased to the PTR proposal from before, and is now 50 at Master Training 65 seconds, still a reduction of research time for the walkers. Oh, I didn't see that yet. Tauren build time reduced by 5 seconds. Interesting. They want to make Tauren more viable. The Fire Lord got big buffs in the version 2 of the PTR. They dial it back a little bit. Mana cost for Incinerate from 2 to 3, still above. Lava splits requirement was 9 on the PTR before. On the live version, it's 15. And now they dial it back to 13. They must have watched the Back to Warcraft Weekly Cup. Also the Infernal damage. It's in the middle now. Not as strong as it was, but still above. Item changes. The Crystal Ball is not a permanent item anymore. It is a charged item with 2 charges that can reveal any spot on the map. It is the drop table of Wand of Illusion, Sentry Wards, and Replenishment Potion. Plus, of course, the cooldown removed. So you can scan 2 spots at the same time, pretty much. Ring of Protection +3 removed from the drop table. That means that on this drop table, it is now 5 different items instead of 6, with Ring of Superiority, Slippers, Gauntlets, Mantle of Intelligence, and Cloak. And of course, an overall reduction from Rings of Protection from the drops. Period of Vitality, for some reason, always gave more mana than all the other items on that level. That's been dialed down to 300. Claws +5 are back. The community was crying, I want my +5. I barely noticed +4. And they cried so long that they get their will. Plus, something that we talked about on the community patch notes, the Frost Armor slow effect on creeps has been nerfed from 5 to 3 seconds to match the Nerub Tower slow. And in general, the Frost Armor slow as well. That was never addressed when the Lich got nerfed. Oh, Talon gold cost. Also a reverted nerf, so they don't cost more gold anymore. Immolation does the same damage as before. Raise Dead also addressed with back to 75 mana instead of 50 mana. Here we were all scared of more Necro Wagon pushes. That should be eliminated. And as far as I know, the Circlet of Nobility is back to level 3. This is what it says in the editor, but it's never mentioned anywhere.
Oh, I actually noticed that. Interesting.
Plus, as Dondo said, the Druids of the Claw, the Bears, start with 100 mana again instead of 110, as it was proposed on the PTR. That was a long monologue, Mr. Dondolare. I had to present the changes to the people. And now you can either give the thumbs up, the thumbs down, or maybe you're a reasonable person and give a thumbs in the middle and explain what is good and what is bad.
Sideways thumbs, I guess.
Yeah.
Some of these changes will be very weird if I strongly criticized, because they are in the same line or even at the same values as suggestions me and Save Orcas, or a document presented by me and Save Orcas, where you got a lot of feedback from pro players. That was also related to the former PTR. So those changes, of course, I agree with. There are some big issues still with this PTR, or new issues, I guess you can say. We probably didn't talk about how we should go through this, but maybe we should go from top to bottom start with, and then do a general overview after. Actually, then I'll just have to do the patch notes from Blizzard so I have the right order of stuff. Yeah, okay, militia time. We can do that first.
Yep, so I move to the patch notes doc now.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's do a quick run through of the changes, with impressions.
Yeah.
And we can be pretty fast, probably. And then do an overall. Yeah, so this is what you guys are looking at is the suggestions that we presented last week. And then we added a line where if it's in the PTR or not. So this is both what's in the PTR and the new suggestions. I guess we'll focus on the stuff that's in the PTR, of course. So the changing of the Archmage, should we do the same order? Yeah, we do the same order as we have written. Doesn't matter. So they did include the changing of the Archmage scaling of Strength, Agility, Intelligence. It's a very small change. It just makes so the Archmage has 25 more HP. On level 2 compared to how it used to, and has 1 more less intelligence on level 6 and beyond. It's like a slight buff for Archmage survivability in the early game. For what is usually a pretty weak hero. The intention behind the suggestion was that Archmage is particularly weak since it doesn't have access to any region or any healing in the early game compared to Ritual Dagger from the Lich, Moonwells from Night Elf, Heal Salves from Orc. So it gives it a tiny bit more survivability, but it's very small increase. So, I mean, we think this is fine because this is our suggestion. So not shockingly, I don't mind it.
Yeah,
at least
I think this was a very, very minimal thing that helps with the early game that is notoriously weak, and it's a minor nerf in the late game. This can be weaker than not picking up a tome in the late game, so nobody should really complain about that. Good, very good.
Yeah, and also, I mean, the main weakness of Archmage in the late game is usually not lack of mana, I would say. So
yeah.
The other changes I think is good that I think everyone agreed that they needed to at least reduce the power of Bash compared to how it was in the PTR. I think we did like a test to say it was like 70 to 80% more like strong, no matter how you measure it, basically, than the old Bash. It's not a bad skill to begin with, so it was like a huge buff. I think this is, if they seem to be pretty insistent on wanting to do something to give it a bit more scaling, and then I think this is fine. It's not like a big enough damage increase that it's going to be like you feel like your hero evaporates with like a huge 100 damage attack, but it gives it a slight bit of scaling. I don't think this is bad. It gives a bit less, feels bad when you haven't been able to scale a skill change from Bash or level 2 Bash into Clap level 3 at level 5, for instance. So I think this is okay. Not bad. It's fine.
Yeah, I think this is not really necessary for me, personally.
No, I don't think it's super necessary, but if they really insist on it, I don't think this hurts that much. Yeah.
Let's say this is so far the best of all the Mountain King changes they proposed. That's something that I can agree with.
I agree as well. Like it's from the suggestions, it's the best. I also agree. I'm not sure it's needed, especially given other changes. But that's like a different thing, I guess. But that goes into it. The devotion aura change is now pretty minimal, though it is pretty big. I mean, 1+ armor is a big buff at level 3, though level 3 devotion aura is mostly FFA team game based thing. Again, I wrote fine because we also suggest, like, if you insist on increasing it, at least give it a slight or very small increase. So it should be reduced from I've written the wrong there. Given from to. Sorry, I have to fix that.
246.
It should say 246. That is correct. So they keep the same at level 1, which I think is good because it was super powerful from the get-go with the new level. 0.5 more armor at level 2. Maybe it makes the choice between Divine Shield or even Holy Light 2 a bit more difficult, but probably not. I think this is fine. Like they seem to be very insistent on changing this again. So if they are, sure, it make the decision making a bit more difficult regarding if you want to go Devotion or Divine Shield or Holy Light.
I gotta say, this to me is a little bit of a weak argument. Like, if they want to do something, then it's fine.
Yeah.
No, it's not fine.
I don't think it's needed either.
Like, it's not fine. To me, it's not fine. I don't see the need to change this. Human late game armor is already one of the strongest in the game. You see it at Knights, you see it at Griffins. You get high armor value. You get the Inner Fire at times. I say it's not needed. Like, nobody needs this. And it strengthens human in an already strong position. So, yeah, I don't like it. Yeah, but I like that they realize that it's not as necessary as they thought it is.
Yeah, I think we're beyond like it being game breaking at least, right? And that was like a big problem in the first iterations. So, and maybe that's a low bar. I'm trying to be a bit polite here and nice, I guess.
Yeah, I will be nice at other spots. Just this, you know me, I have to wade in on the anti-human propaganda that's going on this channel for years, right? So if there's a late game human buff, then I can't accept this.
That is understandable. The next one is increasing Paladin's move speed by 10. I kind of wonder how this makes it as fast as Blood Mage, which is noticeably faster than other human heroes except Dark Mage. I don't know if this is also not needed in my book. I don't get like the big argument for it. It makes Pal Rifles slightly better. It gives it, guess it also gives like Pal Rifles some synergy in that you use Pala and Blood Mage and both have the same move speed now. But I would also put this on the not needed category. I don't quite see the argument for it. I think Pala is a perfectly good hero, especially as he's a very strong support hero as the third hero. Again, like, this is not a change I think changes much. To be fair, it just makes Pala Rifle and Pala specifically a tiny bit better. I disagree with some people that think Pala needs to be better. I also don't think every hero needs to be a starting hero. So that's also a philosophical difference, I guess, between people.
I know why they changed it. I can tell you. I can read their minds. They were sitting there and they were watching a YouTube video reacting to their changes. And they were like, can this Remo Demo guy please shut up with the paladin movement speed? For 4 years he's proposing that. And they were so sick and so tired of that change in Remo's patch notes that they finally gave in. They couldn't take it anymore. So there it is. Once again, I gotta say, I agree. I don't think that is needed. We saw a lot of Pally rifle games in the Back to Warcraft weeklies. And many people noticed it there as well. Pally first is not fun.
No.
Stuff doesn't die. Everything is tanky. Everything is getting healed. Everything is very slow. It's also timing dependent. And, you know, there's this Chinese paladin thing going on where he's just running into the undead base and baptizes all the acolytes like back in the day. And that makes that annoying, toxic strategy stronger. I don't think this is needed.
I agree. I don't think it's needed. Pure and simple. Again, I don't think this like breaks game balance it, but it makes also like it makes Pala's third slightly better against Undead because you can escape hero nukes, and I would say the human hero nuke against Undead is already pretty strong. It also makes the Pala be able to catch Undead heroes faster now with Holy Light if they have low HP. So it's like that matchup is already at best equal, probably a bit human favored, especially if you're not happy. A bit to actually probably pretty significantly human favored if you're not happy. So I don't know. I think this feels unnecessary to me as well in general.
All right, where do you want to continue, with the Blood Mage or with the Militia?
Well, the Blood Mage was just our suggestions, and they did not change it, so I guess we can just jump over that. We can do the Militia duration then. We suggested as well to reduce a bit from 45 because you do a pretty big jump from 40 to 45. A lot of human players, especially, are very aching to old school, like how the old good days of the game, as they say, and long for the 45 seconds Militia timer. Militia are hugely important in like all facets of the match. During a match, they can creep, they can defend. They like the longer the Militia lasts, the more Militia are going to save just because they're faster. While Militias, you run away, they have more armor, etc., etc., etc. Since they were 45 seconds, gameplay has evolved a lot. We have gotten a stronger arcing tower. Peasants have more HP. Human in general is doing pretty well, except in one matchup, Night Elf, where they're doing better than they used to, but still underperforming a bit. So doing like a 40 to 45 change, it was a big change, so we suggested to just reduce it a bit to 42.5 and start from there. Also, should be said, we kind of felt like this should be met with some changes to the synergy of Arcane Tower. I don't think we need to go through that, but yeah, I mean, it is a pretty substantial buff still. It's 2.5 seconds. Those 2.5 seconds will matter quite a lot. Your more peasants will survive the early game. They will be better in mid-game fights when they are moving to the middle of the map. They're going to be able to escape more damage. It's going to matter. So I still think it's a buff that is very substantial for a human.
Maybe I'm feeding into the meme. And I'm sorry about that, but we get Archmage buff, Mountain King buff, Paladin buff, Militia buff, food buff in general, Priest buff. No nerfs anywhere. Does human need a patch with 5 to 6 buffs without a single nerf? Or am I just missing something?
No, you're not missing anything. And well, for all human players out there, yes, we do. No, we don't. We don't need that many buffs, I think. And I mean, I think I'll do that more in the overall, I think, after. But I can just say that in general, it feels a bit weird of increasing human at all power levels when I would say that from the data I sit on, at least, they're doing well to very well into matchups, and not horrible anymore in the third one. And the third one is getting other changes as well that are impactful.
So I would be very fine if the Sundering Blades ability would be taken away, for example, or if the Arcane Tower maybe gets nerfed a little bit. But yeah, this is very, very one-sided, and maybe it's taught Death Note and Demon doing the patches now, who knows?
Well, I got accused of or nerfing human, so it's not me at least.
Yeah, that's correct. All right, the priest cast point, you might have to explain this because it's a little bit mechanical and it's not a change that many people immediately get.
So you have cooldown and you have cast time, basically cast point. So the cast point is, it shouldn't, yes, let's see, does it say 0.4? There we are. I mean, so you had... I think you have the wrong document open, by the way.
Oh,
but that's why I was reacting a bit.
There we go. Sorry.
Be the one. Yeah. So basically, you have a cast point that is like an animation for the cast, and the cooldown is how long between you have to wait for it to initiate a new casting of the spell. You don't want to just reduce one of those values by itself, because then the priest heals faster, so it heals more HP over time. And heal is already a good ability, it doesn't need a buff. But you can't cast this spell while the animation cast time is happening. So if you try to hit the spell with a priest and it's during a heal cast, it just ignores the order. That's why you have to like click the spell 5 million times to cast the spell.
So it's not even that it gets queued behind the heal, it just doesn't get it.
Just bugs out. Quite often just bugs out. I think sometimes it queues, sometimes doesn't. It's a bit of a mystery, like why it sometimes goes off and not, like a long time after. But at this point, this change basically makes it so the animation casting time takes a bit shorter, but you increase the cooldown between each heal. So you then do like the rate of healing becomes the same, but there's a slight less chance of the heal casting interrupting your dispel. So it just makes it's a very, very small quality of life that increases the chance of you actually getting a dispel off when you hit the spell instead of the priest just doing something else.
And we love to see quality of life. We love to see things being less annoying and frustrating. And this is very cool to have.
Indeed. This is a good thing. Like, we'll see, maybe someone discovered that this is bad, but I can't like see what's bad with this. I think I tested it a bit on the test map. It looked fine. Didn't look like anything was off. So yeah.
Cool. Yeah, love that. Are we moving over to orcs or?
Orcs. Zug.
Zug. Bladestorm
they kept the Bladestorm damage.
Yeah.
From at 140. We were kind of critical of that. I mean, it's probably a change that is probably not that impactful in most games, but I still think it's situationally way too strong at the moment, just in the damage department. While it's still pretty unusable in terms of how much mana it costs. So our suggestion was to nerf the damage increase quite significantly, or just keep it at could even like keep it at what it is, but make it more usable by decreasing mana cost. But at this damage levels, it kills basically everything if it is during the full duration. So your Tree of Life, rip, your full army rip if you can't move, which you usually can. So I guess that's a bit more theoretical change, but not a theoretical thing. But yeah, I don't think this is good. Just increasing the damage by that much. I think it's a lot better if they did something else to make it more usable.
Yeah, I think
150 mana would make it so 1 mana pot gives you 1 Bladestorm, which I think sounds good in my book at least.
We might have to point out that there's a difference between Bladestorm and other stuff that was buffed before, like the Volcano, like a Starfall, etc. Because Bladestorm can't be interrupted. The damage is always going to be there. The 1,000 damage are 1,000 damage. It doesn't matter if someone hits a Stormbolt or a Bash or whatever, all doesn't work. So there's basically no counterplay except running away from it, but that's also hard. Yeah, this could be super strong, but in general, if ultimates are strong, that's what they're supposed to be. And it's still very, very hard to get the mana together. Windwalk will suffer, or Mirror Image, whatever you go for, because you have to gather that mana. So maybe it's not as bad, but if you have the mana, then it's definitely devastating.
So, Neo, I have to in 1 minute just pick the food is arriving. I'll be gone in like 1 to 2 minutes. Just keep the chat happy, and I'll be back very soon.
Okay. Yeah, I think we can go over some other changes that should be very anonymously liked. The headhunters are still buffed. That wasn't reverted, which is a good thing. A lot of people said that the triple Walker buff in build time and the 2 trainings together being buffed is a bit too strong. So they dialed back a bit, put like 3 seconds more on the clock for every Walker, and instead of 10 seconds buff per training, 15 seconds, it's now 10. So overall, until, like, if you go Walker plus the depth upgrade, it now takes 13 seconds longer than on the previous PTR, but still a significant buff over the live version, where it is a 13-second buff. So there's no comment here, but I think it's just fine. Witch Doctor's not addressed, maybe a patch for later. They seem to be pretty adamant that this is also a good change. I explained it before, like Night Elves, if they play Dryad Bears, they also have just 1 armor upgrade to research, and it's way cheaper. And so that argument to me is a little bit invalid if you want to use that against the orcs. But yeah, let's wait for Dondo, because Tauren build time, there seems to be is there a bug? What is the Tauren build time change? I totally overread that. From 44 to 39 seconds. 5 seconds on every Tauren. So we'll see about that. Can it hurt? At this stage of the game, tier 3 orc? I'm not sure. It is, to me, a very simple change. A very easy change. Not the most creative, but that's fine. We can try. I don't see it being essentially broken from my intuition without seeing a single game with the new Tauren. Gotta say that it all adds up, because you kind of want walkers with these Tauren as well. So we'll see. Dondo is
okay, I'm back.
Back. Okay, so you can tell us why, what's happening with the Tauren.
Why they're making them build faster?
Yeah, and if that's a good thing, and if you like it, and if they should keep it.
I haven't thought that much about it. I guess, yeah, why not? I think Sevorkas and some players suggested instead of doing the Walker buffs, just reducing the Totem build time to give it more more of a balanced buff to hold that whole tech tree.
Yeah.
I think this is fine. I don't think this fundamentally solves that much with Torrents in a way. Like what makes them good, what makes them bad, but it's a slight buff. And Torrents are not used that much in general, so I don't see a huge issue with it. Yeah, why not?
The numbers are not updated, I think, on the doc for the Tauren build time.
No, I haven't done Tauren. I forgot that one.
So far, also not a single nerf for Orc, which I think we concluded in the past 2 weeks already, is a good thing. They don't have an overwhelming strength currently in the meta game. Nothing that desperately needs to be addressed from our point of view. And these changes aren't insane like others were in the previous iterations of the PTR. So from our perspective, Orc seems very fine, even though I'd still, since I heard it, would love to see a buff for the Orb of Lightning with the purge damage increased, but we'll go into that later. Shall we talk about Night Elves?
I should also add, I think we should add that the item changes probably help Orc a bit. Well, especially the class change will help them. Given the whole sum, I'm not sure now. It's like I can't, in my mind, construct the whole item table anymore, since there's like several changes. But everything that removes armor towards more damage will usually be good for Orc. Though if they get the Hawk item, I can't remember the name even.
The Hawk item, Crystal Ball.
Crystal Ball. It'll be horror bad for a Blade Master usually, right? And it's actually pretty bad for the Orc if the Night Elf gets it, because they can scout the Blade Master a lot more easily.
But it's only two charges and it doesn't reveal for long like a dust does.
So I'm a bit unsure like how the item pool changes, but if the Blade Master get the class, +1 is actually pretty useful for the Blade Master. But though now Circle is back again, so who knows? It's a bit of a mess to keep track of.
All right, Night Elf. Shall we do it? Do we have to do it?
Oof. Yes, let's do it. Go.
Okay.
Yeah. So, immolation change increase is just the same as used to be. I think we mentioned in the earlier iteration that this might be it's actually a big change from 1 to 10. It was okay to start with 1 to 5 and see how that actually works in practice. I think there's a good thing that they take feedback immediately, but we have to also remember that a lot of the feedback here is just us predicting what will happen in values. There's not enough games played on the PTR that you can like really do a lot of good deductions. 5, 10 is like now immolation is actually becoming pretty costly to misactivate. You have to toggle on and off. So maybe 5 was fine to begin with. I don't think Demon Hunter is close to as dominating as he used to be at his like the peak power level of 135. So, but yeah, I mean, it's not huge maybe, but I would start with 5 instead of 10, personally. But I don't think that's a big boy change here.
I mean, since we're still on the topic of immolation, I think we all agree that reverting the nerf in damage is a good thing.
That is very good, actually. I removed that. I think like that 0.5 damage. First of all, I think that's like it gets to values which are so small in difference that it's very hard to measure what they actually do. And that also makes it very difficult to measure how the change worked. I also think double nerfing is something you should be pretty careful about. From the data suggests that human Night Elf is growing steadily closer. Night Elf is not doing particularly hot against Undead. They're doing pretty horrible, generally. So, double nerfing immolation, which is the main tool for why Demon Hunter is now viable in the meta again, seems a bit too much. Yeah. So that, and also, I'm the guy that came up with that 0.5 damage suggestion, so I should have some insight into the matter.
All right, let's talk about the elephant in the room that we really don't want to talk about, but we have to. Mana burn range reduced from 300 to 250. That is a huge nerf.
It's a huge nerf. And like this is a change that conceptually, like if you just regard how the game functions and just like as a concept, maybe it doesn't like seem that bad or like it has an idea behind it, right? Because Mana Burn is an anti-fun spell because it removes other heroes' opportunity to do stuff. And maybe people feel like there's a bit of too less of a risk to just go into Mana Burn. 300 range is not a lot, but it still like feels that it can hit from pretty far range sometimes. That being said, so like the concept of, okay, let's slightly reduce the power of this anti-fun spell. And also Demon Hunter has been very dominant in the meta overall, right? So these are like the ideas behind probably why they did the change or why people want to see that change. However, big however, relax Night Elves. Given the current meta and how the game just functions in general, this change would be extremely impactful for Night Elf to the extent I think they will have huge problems. Not in one matchup they already have problems, but maybe 2. Maybe 3 actually. Mana Burn is super important against Undead to remove mana from the heroes. Night Elves in general, especially at the top level, already suffer against Undead. So this will just make that situation even worse. We see a lot of MK first and second against Night Elf currently from both Fortitude and Sock, the two best human players. Starbucks still mostly goes Blood Mage, but those two got a lot of MK, where they use either MK first or MK second, and they use a lot of invisibility and stuff to keep on trying to dodge the mana burns. This changes like the whole cost risk ratio for the Demon Hunter to do anything with MK substantially. So for two different matchups, this really changes a lot of the dynamic on why and how you can use Demon Hunter. I think this like is a very bad change given the current like balance situation in meta. I just think it's like a hugely impactful change that is negative to Night Elf. And you have this somewhat similar, the opposite of the human, where you only got buffs. For what Night Elves usually play, we only see nerfs, right?
Yeah. And I kind of want to add to that, that they also reduced the ring +3, the ring of protection +3. So a Demon Hunter in general, on average, will have less armor than he has now. Bro. So you have to get closer to an army when your armor is weaker than it is now. That's dangerous. Like we see the Demon Hunter nuked pretty much immediately now as well. It is a skill to continuously use the mana burn to prepare for the big fight. And I think it's a cool dynamic, even though it's an anti-fun spell. Yeah, I agree. Don't do it, brother or sister or person in between. We don't know, but don't.
I have to like emphasize this. I actually think this will be very, very bad,
Yes.
like given the current state of how the game functions. I don't think like the idea should be here that, but maybe they'll find out something else that will work as like the thing we should hope. I think this will be super bad for Night Elf that is already dependent on mana burn as usage. Gotta keep in mind, like I know mana burn is an anti-fun spell, quote, but it also makes, like, if you scale mana burn, you also don't have, like, the Night Elf then doesn't have a spell that does anything except mana burning, right? So it is like both ways. It's not just one way here. So I think I don't quite understand that concept either fully. So I think it's fine. It's also such an iconic and spell that has been in the game for all time. So I don't get like why that should be nerfed to the ground, basically.
This screams use Warden.
Yeah.
But
however,
yeah.
I don't think it doesn't help because the things. I mean, let me just say, we can go to Warden Change and try to do like a bit of a synergy here. The Warden Changes, I actually still disagree with how the changes are implemented. I think 7 targets at level 3 is hugely impactful. And I think it's just too much damage for such a mobile hero, especially with the blink increases. However, before the Night Elves again go insane, there will not be that many matches where this will be impactful enough that it actually matters. Because a lot of Night Elves will get killed by Undead before that, by the Frenzy push. That hasn't changed anything in this change. Also, even against Human, it does a lot of damage now. It is like it can change matchups, but from my interpretation, a lot of Warden games against Human either end in 1-base pushes or goes like into super late game with Knights, so stuff that can survive Fan a lot better than like the Caster army. And in those situations, even 2 targets more might not be that impactful. And you still have to hit all 7 targets and stuff, right? So it's a lot of ifs and buts whether you get to that range. I still don't think this change is good for the Warden because it makes it situationally super powerful. But that doesn't remedy the changes to the Demon Hunter because most Night Elves, and especially on certain maps, you can't get Warden to that power level you need to for it to survive either the Undead push or maybe against like certain human strats. So, and I mean, you can't go Warden against Orc.
Yeah, many have tried, but yeah, it shouldn't really work. Let's talk about Fairy Dragons and then address the Night Elf heroes maybe again when we go to the Undead side of things. Because there's a synergy that needs to be discussed, of course. You gave us a big rundown of Fairy Dragon's Mana Flare and told us why they shouldn't tackle the range, and now they revert the changes from before and reduce the max damage. Is that the correct way of doing it?
Yeah, I mean, this is our suggestion, I think so. I think probably Fair Dragons for their mana flare ability against humans specifically was always super powerful. Blizzard buffed it, so it got used. People discovered it was very useful. It still does 80 damage with 80 splash damage to the next target, 160 damage if they're close. Casters are usually pretty close to each other if they use over 25 mana or 25 mana or more. Still a lot of damage. 2 fairies can still wipe out a human caster army in like 3 or 2 spell cast rounds if they don't have a heal scroll. This slightly reduces the damage. I mean, it's pretty big, like 40 damage overall if it hits both, gets mana flared, and hits the next target. But it's still 160 damage. You still need to invest a heal scroll to do more than 1 spell from each unit. I think this is fine. It gives human a slightly more time to react, slightly more time to kite, slightly more time to heal, but it still remains a super powerful spell, or anti-magic spell, especially against human, where it needs to be strong.
Yeah. All right, Night Elf more or less done. This will trickle into the undead side of things, as they didn't address... Oh no, there's one more. Sorry, I forgot about that. Allowed to... Exactly. Allowed to research Mark of the Talon once the Druid of the Talon Adept training is done. So you don't need Master training anymore to use Fairy Fire when in Crow form. This was your suggestion. You must be happy with it.
Yeah, I think this is like a small cool change. Cool change. I don't think it will matter that much in that many aspects. It's more of a cool thing if you can get it. It makes Talons now as an anti-air unit also have like some usability when they're in the air, except of just watching the air. They might do at some points. I think this is like a good small change. Again, impactfulness with the other changes already involved will be very small, usually. Because, again, Night Elves, the matchup they would mostly use this would be against Undead, and they already struggle to get to that point. And they now will probably struggle even more with these changes. So...
yeah. I think it can be really, really cool if we reach the super late game of Undead versus Night Elf, which can be one of the best matchups, but the problem, as always, is to get there. And yeah, that won't happen too often with these patch suggestions. But in general, thumbs up for that. I always hate when units serve a purpose for like 5 seconds in a fight and then they're useless, just like gyros when they don't have bombs. So allowing this without forcing a tier 3 tech and the master training and then the Mark of the Claw, like that's a gigantic hurdle for a talent to use this ability in that state. So cutting this down, great, I like it. Still needs to be researched, unlike Thundering Blades, for example, so good stuff. Undead. The Crypt Lord passive is still not changed at all. They didn't go through with the crazy stuff that you suggested. To me...
Which is totally, I mean, in a first iteration here, I think is fair. I think that will need a lot of testing and stuff to either... And we're not sure that it's even usable, so who knows? But, yeah. Still think that, like, the very weird case that never gonna happen with the level 10 Crypt Lord makes that armor increase in level 3 a bit extreme. But we'll see.
Yeah.
There's only one guy who's gonna play like that. We both know who it is. He's in chat, pretty sure.
So
and he's from India.
Right on. My personal assistant, Nothar. Narub Tower. A lot of talk for years about the Narub Tower. In the first iteration, they increased the attack cooldown from 1 to 1.5. And if I understand correctly, this was now not reverted, correct?
No, they haven't written it. I actually haven't checked an object yet. I can do it, but I would think that would be there. I'm pretty sure that change actually, like the more I think of it, was directed towards the Tower Rush. Because it reduces the DPS, right? That's the main thing of the cooldown increase. That's like, it of course makes it a bit more difficult to juggle between units and heroes, but mostly I think it's a DPS decrease by 33% by doing that change.
Okay, and now the big new change is yet another nerf. Reduce the slow duration of Narub Tower and main building as well, by the way, as it is one shared attack that a Narub Tower shares with the main building, from 5 seconds to 3 on heroes, while it stays 5 seconds on units.
Yeah. our suggestion was to reduce it by start by 1. I said that you can do 2 by heroes. Personally, there's a bit like disagreement among the pros and me and Sevorkas among that concept. I guess the reason they only do heroes reduction in how long it slows is because, as you mentioned, water elementals, which I think is actually makes sense. Water elementals are already super powerful in canceling under the expo attempt. So
I mentioned this when we were not on the air, I think.
Yeah, I did. Sorry, but we know, Neo. We know everything. But yeah, I think I actually don't mind this change. I think the main reason to nerf Nerf Tower, first of all, it's a super powerful slow. It's the only slow and like that kind of spell in the game that doesn't have different values for heroes and units at the get go. So it also makes sense in that way. This makes it slightly more easy to both harass and get out of harasses. With Night Elf heroes and all heroes, but maybe it's particularly Night Elf heroes. I think this is a good change in the right direction. I would say I feel like on most maps, with some exceptions, you see less and less of Undead expo attempts in the matchup where it's mostly problematic against Night Elf in general these days. So I hope, I do think we maybe don't need to do as drastic changes to Nerub as we maybe thought of like a couple of months ago to avoid, because when Undead Expos were the meta, the Undead Night Elf play was very difficult for Night Elf because it was so hard to make that Expo costly. I think this might be enough to make that Expo costly, and it will also help against the Tower Rush. So I think these are good changes. If they're like the perfect changes, if we need to look more at the numbers, etc., who knows? But this is a good change in the right direction, in my opinion.
All right, we will definitely have to observe if this is too much, because that is pretty drastic in terms of power level of the Nerub Tower. I think it has the right purpose. It has the right goal. Nerub Tower slow, or that kind of slow in general, is super obnoxious. 5 seconds slow on a hero, and you have very little that you can do against it. For example, you can't dispel it. You can, yeah, that's what you can do, I guess. You can't dispel it. It was always very, very strong. Is it now too weak? Will Undead still be able to expand? That needs to be seen, but you can still buff it up to 4 again, or find a middle ground somewhere else.
Or down to 2, Neo, you never know.
Or down to 2, you never know, exactly. That goes both ways, of course. But yeah, I don't really like Undead Tower pushes. I don't really like the Garg play if it's very, very obnoxious and the other race has nothing to throw against it. So yeah, this will hopefully help with that.
We can always hope.
We should always hope. We have the mana cost for summon skeletons reverted.
Removed.
Yeah,
that's super good, I think.
Yeah,
I think many people alerted to the fact that playing against mass summons, or basically like the concept of quote unquote free units, is super annoying in RTS games in general. If you make, 50 mana is still a cost, right? It still costs mana, but it feels very cheap. It will make necro pushes a lot more powerful and just necro play overall. And even though it's a beatable strat, it's a super frustrating strat to play against. It's super easy to pull off. It has like a weird easiness to do versus easiness to counter curve that is very lopsided in one direction. I think nobody wants to make like mass summon skellies a big part of the game. People want to see more necros and stuff, that's totally fine. But not by just summoning 500 skellies that just is impossible to deal with. So this is super good that they removed.
Apart from that, no other change except the Dreadlord now has more movement speed. I'm not too sure what to think of it, because here we have a thing that, while the Paladin has no catch, but a nuke, the Dreadlord has both. So yeah, he's very slow, but he got sleep. And sleep is, especially when you chase a unit or a hero, an extremely strong spell if nothing is there to wake up that unit. Will it make a big difference? I'm not too sure. I could probably say the same to the Dreadlord that I said against the Paladin. I think it's slightly less toxic than a Paladin can be in extreme situations, but we've also seen carrion swarms into human bases, and it's also annoying. I don't know. If that's necessary, it could be good. It could be bad. I don't think it's game breaking.
It's also like a couple of things I think as well. It's it's the hero we see quite often as a third hero, so it's obviously not that weak since people choose to do it. It is not. I think it's underrated in solos. I don't think it's like the best meta choice, but it's not a horrible hero by all sorts. We see it in pro games not that rarely, and it does well. And it works especially well on certain maps. This makes it even better on those maps with the movement speed. It reduces, I mean, the Dreadlord's thing is like you can both catch you with sleep, but it's also pretty vulnerable, I would say, before you get a proper army. Yeah. Now the Dreadlord is less vulnerable. I also worry a bit about the Dreadlord synergy against flying machines with this. Because it's already good against flying machines. Now it's a lot harder to do that micro dynamic. True. Between a faster Dreadlord that can move faster in and out of range and stuff. So
that's a good point. I didn't see that yet.
Yeah, so I'm not a big fan of the change. Also because I think the Dreadlord playstyle is pretty the solo Dreadlord playstyle is super frustrating. People usually don't like to play that much against it. It's very lamey. Now you make it even stronger in that department. Well, you simultaneously buff a very good third hero in at least 2 matchups, 3 matchups if you go for Gargs. So, yeah.
So, flying machines still have a movement speed of 400, plus they are flying, so
yeah. They're still a lot faster.
They're still a lot faster, exactly. I just want to point that out.
It's this big dynamic when you have flying machines and you get the Dreadlord, especially when you get to level 3 for you can go. I think we saw one game Sark 1-0 not that long ago when you had armor upgrades on destroyers against a gazillion flying machines and it did no damage. It was a Lost Temple against the Dreadlord that did Cavern Storm as well. So it's a dynamic. You also saw the Mass Garg strat from Happy, right?
Yeah.
So it was making Dreadlord a lot more powerful, not a lot more, but more powerful in that match. It matters actually quite a bit, I think. So I don't think this is. I'm not sure I don't think it's necessarily a good change in direction of balance. I also think it's just a change that might degrade game value, in lack of a better word, gameplay, how it feels to play. So yeah.
Yeah, that's of course the thing with the flying machines. You have to fly in a little bit, try to do some damage, then fly back. It's not really kiting, it's just poking in the air, which is a little odd that you don't see too often. Okay, so we'll see how that works. I'm not heavily against it. I think be careful, and I think they are careful, and this can still be reverted relatively easy if necessary, but not as strong of feelings as I have against the Paladin buff on movement speed, because of course it's the anti-human propaganda of the undead casters back to Warcraft. So obviously this is my take. So this change of a Demon Hunter and the buff to the Warden in combination with the Narrow Tower change, does that do the right thing? Does that accomplish the right thing?
No.
I think so too, dude.
I mean, I can explain it a bit, go into detail. I know the Night Elves are already up in arms, and we can just say, I mean, all numbers suggest that Undead have a pretty significant advantage against Night Elf. And this actually holds true for all top MMR levels, even if you exclude the one and only Mr. Happy, which is always an outlier, makes everything difficult. But even excluding him, that's the one matchup that is consistently showing an advantage for one race. The others have a tendency to shift a bit more, depending on which players you include, etc. But that one is very bad in general. The main problem that Night Elves face against Undead is that the gameplay is just, I think it's twofold. The one thing is the gameplay is super unforgiving for Night Elf. They have several moments during a match where the game can just completely disappear. I think the level 3 DK, level 1 Lich on standard plays a super weak timing for Night Elf. They can pick off their creeping. If the Undead gets an expo up, which is rare these days, they can go the full Mass Garg army that Night Elf doesn't have a full good counter against, especially if they don't go Panda. Then they kind of have no counter. But the one thing, of course, that we see in most games in practice is the so-called frenzy timing, which is the 8:39-ish minutes. You can correct me by the seconds, Neo. Somewhere around that time.
To quote the world champion, it depends.
It depends. Yeah. But somewhere around there. Like, yeah.
Yeah, between 8:30 and 9:30 is usually what we aim for.
And that timing push is super powerful against Night Elves. You now nerf the two main components Night Elves have tried to do to keep that push less destructive. You nerf the Demon Hunter, so the Demon Hunter is used to drain mana during and before the fights. So you try to basically drain mana and keep one more production or two more production cycles going, so you have a bit more power against the push. And also, of course, it's not now. It has to be twofold, right? You don't only makes it less viable that the demon actually gets the mana drain off, but it also makes the demon take a lot more damage. That drains more moon juice, has a lot of negative impacts on those times we try to fight. You also have nerfed immolation, so the whole power, both the harassment the Night Elf does against the creeping of the undead is now weaker, and you make the creeping of the Demon Hunter weaker as well. So, what is the solution? And so the thing is like, okay, but can't Night Elf go other heroes? They can go Keeper first. Has not proven to be super viable in mode. It can happen sometimes. You can do tricky, and you can be, if you get like the proper, everything falls into your place, you can win with Mass Air, but it's not been super successful for a long while now. The other way is to go Warden, which is super finicky and can die also very fast to the same frenzy push. I don't think the Warden changes are that impactful for that push, because you usually don't have, maybe you have 7 ghouls. I think that's pretty rare. You have a hard time getting level 5 Warden. So I don't know. I feel like all the changes are just even making a Night Elf even weaker against that specific push. And the Nerf changes might make it so that that one thing they struggle against, the fast expo into Garg play, becomes more common. But they're still going to die against the other thing they die to all the time, which is the frenzy push.
Yeah, you see it's very problematic, and there's a lot of problems still unaddressed in this patch. I'm watching these 9-minute pushes for since the ESL Cup days, like even longer. I think the entire Reforged era is this 9-minute push, more or less, and it's really bland. Like, it's so boring, it's not interesting, there's no dynamic, there's no back and forth, there's just, are you ready or are you not ready? And then, yeah, I don't have much hope that this is going to be reduced. And yeah, this is not great. I'm still yelling for Frenzy Nerf, which would, of course, reduce the potency of ghouls at that stage of the game, or delay the power spike, which feels very necessary now. I don't think you can fix this matchup without a Frenzy Nerf.
No, I don't think so either. I think there's 2 suggestions we made, right? And that's in our suggestions. That was reducing both the Frenzy attack rate speed increase, which reduces DPS a bit, less than people probably think.
Yes.
But reduces the DPS a bit, and also increasing the research time by 5 seconds. I would say, personally, that these changes are super conservative.
Yeah.
I think you can do actually, well, people are going to kill me probably, but I think you can maybe even go down to 25 and maybe even 10 seconds on the frenzy duration time. I mean, maybe that's too much doing both, but I think people underestimate, like, it sounds 5% of increase in induction attack rate or less sounds impactful. It's 0.5 DPS basically, so it's not that much.
Yeah. And
DPS only matters when you get enough hits that it becomes infinity, so it doesn't reduce that much damage impact in the beginning. 5 seconds. 5 seconds more, 5 seconds less before another ghoul or fiend can be built. Maybe not impactful enough either. The idea was to start like pushing it in a direction and see. And of course, there's one thing that Undeads probably are screaming about now, is that we already have a matchup that we feel is difficult, at least most Undeads do, and that's human.
Yeah.
Hence, we suggested to do the Night Nerf and tinker a bit with how the early game Arcane Tower, and also why we also didn't want to overbuff human in general, as the militia time, the other stuff, because we need to keep like these 2 things in our thoughts at the same time. So the thing is, with these changes, a human is now probably doing even better against undead because you didn't hit anything like that actually hits that matchup except just pure buff for human. But you also just made the undead night elf matchup worse, and I don't know. Yeah, it kind of those jigsaw puzzles are still like a huge miss there. It is by the numbers the most problematic matchup in the game by a distance. Human orc looks bad as well, but they get a pretty substantial buff with headhunters. Also, I think meta changes with fast X and stuff might figure itself a bit more out over time.
Yeah.
But Undead Night Elf has looked horrible for 2-3 years now. 2 years, maybe at least.
Yeah.
So it's a big missed opportunity that they not even target it, but they also make it significantly worse. I think there's some vocal Night Elf players out there that may be a bit too vocal at all times, but they do have a good point when they feel a bit put back by these changes in together, like especially for the undead matchup.
Yeah.
But I also think this actually, like, I think this might veer like slowly the bottom line against both orc and human to be like. I think this patch will be super bad for Night Elf, as it is stated by now.
Yeah. I think it's the right approach with the narrow tower change to get rid of toxic tower push stuff and also an easy fast expansion and create a harassable fast expansion. I'm not a big fan of the Gargoyle versus Hippo play, and that has one reason, and I say it for years now, and that's the heal scroll for undeads in the shop. Without that heal scroll, you have a way more interesting dynamic because both want the heal scrolls and fight over them at the shop, but the undead has no incentive to contest the shop because you have heal scroll at home and not the meme heal scroll, but the real heal scroll. I think that's a big problem against hippos. Without these heal scrolls at home, everything in that regard would be different, especially with a more powerful fan of knives on top of that. So that would be less of a problem. And yeah, of course, frenzy timing, we talked about it. So that would be my idea to tackle this. Plus, yeah, this 9-minute 30 push as well. And if we look at this from the other side, I think this will probably make human versus undead worse as well. Make orc versus undead. Not too sure with the headhunter nerfs. But it doesn't really lead to a more balanced game. Like, undead has been hit hard for a long time. And that's still kind of the case. Getting worse-ish, except with the Dreadlord changes. That could be a big help, of course. But yeah, I'm not sure about these changes, man. There's some substantial stuff missing for me.
I also think we should probably mention the abomination change. I think most the feedback I got from Undead so far is that it's a nerf and or it doesn't help what the main mechanic of that unit is, was to be big and blockable and spread the disease cloud. So could maybe also I don't think that's necessary either. Probably should be mentioned. But yeah, I don't think headhunters with 25 more HP is still that doable against Undead. Because I think Undead just discovered the way you abuse them by even, of course, you don't one-shot them as you don't now, where they're completely unusable in that against the mass school style. But I don't think it moves the needle to that extent that you now can say that will be the meta. I don't convinced. Maybe if they also if ghouls were slightly weaker, maybe. And of course, if we keep nerfing Undead, and at some point it shows up in the data, or just from our viewing experience that Undead becomes too weak, we need to target those matchups where that's a problem. And that's also where we're trying to be a bit careful with the human Undead matchup, which I think is pretty much on the edge. Also Orc versus Undead, though I don't think the Headhunter change is impactful.
Yeah.
That being said, I think Undead Night Elf is such a obvious target to hit. So we need to try to target that matchup and then see what we can tweak, if we need to tweak more in other matchups to compensate. But doing a blanket nerf of Night Elf overall in the hopes of the one warden saving everything seems super hopeful.
Yeah, I guess so too. Quick annotation for the abominations. You get more damage on the front line because in an ideal world, one more A-bomb can attack a target. Maybe that makes up for it. Maybe that's gonna be good. I think this is just something we have to see, because on the PTR Fridays, we haven't seen these A-bombs at all. So yeah, could be good, could be bad. I would rather think it's on the good side, but maybe I'm wrong. That can definitely be true. I want to talk about items real quick. Or are we not done yet?
No, let's go.
Okay. We had a clear goal. The entire scene had a goal. Blizzard is with us. Rings of Protection need to go. In some form or way. We got 3 item levels. All have Ring of Protection, +3, +4, +5. And Blizzard has decided to remove Ring of Protection +3 from the... Wait, was it moved or was it removed? It was removed, right?
+3 is now removed, +4 remains, which is a bit counterintuitive to me, but we can... Yeah.
Okay, so that's, I think, not... Oh, is it updated? I'm once again on the wrong thingy here.
2.0. It is updated, yes.
Can you make the row for in PTR a lot smaller so it fits on one screen?
There you are.
Wonderful.
Fine.
There we go. Yeah, Ring of Protection +3 removed from the drop table, so it's not available anymore alongside Ring of Superiority, Slippers, Gauntlets.
Yeah. I mean, I think switching the ring stuff up, we had a big of a difference, I think, when you increased +3 and then remove +4, I think was our idea or something. I can't remember every detail here, but just because I think +4 ring is now still super undervalued in its drop table level. But at least you don't get the +7 hero after 2 creep camps. Yes. The +7 armor creep hero from 2 creep camps now, which is also a big nerf to the Demon Hunter.
Yes.
Our poor boy is he's a reason to be emo now with these changes, basically.
Yeah, we can go on concerts together, dude. It's all good. I'm gonna cry a bit. I bring the tissue. It's gonna be fine. Yeah, I think you're right. Our idea was to move Ring of Protection +3 to the level 2 drop table and remove Ring +4. They decide differently, maybe to save some work, so they don't have to do 3 things, but only 2. That makes it so, in conjunction with the circlet being reverted to level 3, that the level 2 drop table has exactly 3 items. Again. And that's why we wanted to have the Ring +3 on level 2, so we have 4 items on the drop table, and not just a 33% chance. Could be better. It's not that bad. The direction is the right one. But with a simple change, it could be so much better.
I agree. Perfectly agree.
Claw.
And I kind of feel like with all these item suggestions, to me it seems like they do one by one, and they don't kind of just look they should just have a list, drop table level, and just it kind of feels like they just do a lot of they do this one item and this one item without doing the full list, basically. So that's why we get this asymmetrical drop table sizes to this extent, which is a bit extreme at different levels now.
There we go. It's relatively clear. Here it's 5 items, there it's 3, then there's 6, and then level 4 and level 5 are gigantic. I don't think I added everything to level 6 just yet, but yeah, there's something missing there. And I really hope they implement new items. If I'm not mistaken, I saw that they added some stuff, or I
added one item basically.
Oh, is that the bad one?
The one where you recall ability.
Yeah, they added it, but it's not droppable, is it?
No, that's maybe. I haven't actually. I just saw that it was added.
So for people who don't know what we're talking about, there's something in the editor. You can look at all the items, and the items that drop are listed in, or can be purchased, are listed in standard items permanent. And there's the Diamond of Summoning that teleports X amount of units from a targeted area to the hero when used. And that thing is permanent on a 2-minute cooldown. Like, that's insane.
Yeah.
It's just completely nuts.
And why did it have to find like the most extreme of that insult?
Right? First the pickaxe, now the recall. Like, boys, if it's a charged item and you can use it once, that's bad enough. But yes. I can kind of see that why they think that's usable. Permanent 2-minute cooldown. You guys gotta be kidding me. Don't implement it. Don't do it.
Don't do it, bro.
Don't do it, bro.
Yeah. And was there other item changes? We already went through Crystal Ball. I think I have a weird idea of Crystal Ball now being like either super underwhelming, because you don't get a permanent item for heroes that want to keep that, and some matchups the scouting doesn't provide you anything. I think a lot of people would be very unhappy with this against the human fast expo, for instance, because the human's not gonna do anything than defend his expo or harass you trying to defend his expo. For human, for instance, like I just like as a human player, I can imagine situations, for instance, on Northern Isles against Night Elf. Having the ability to scan immediately after, like, you start setting up your expo, if the Night Elf goes for counter expo or not, can be situationally super powerful. So there's like situations where I can see like this becoming actually pretty good at the current iteration, but it can also be super underwhelming in a lot of situations.
Dondo, when it would have been down to you, we'd still be playing patch 1.27. You're so conservative. Blizzard wants to freshen up the game, and you're standing against it, dude.
No, I'm not saying necessarily this is bad. It just gives it a bit of a wonky like cost-benefit thing, right? Like when it sometimes can be super good, you very often super bad, because in the early game you just like permanent items a lot more than you do these somewhat underwhelming usables, depending on the matchup and the situation. But there's also some matchups where basically the early game is 2 heroes or 2 small armies just colliding on each other for like the first 4 minutes. So what you're going to scout anyways, like you know what's happening behind it. So yeah.
You know, I like that thing. I think it's okay. The crystal ball was a meme item, and it was a permanent item, and nobody liked it. It was kind of breaking that drop table. And by just simply removing it from that drop table, it's already a plus for the game. And adding something to a drop table that has very few items, that has benefits and also negatives to items that are currently on that consumable level 2 drop table, is kind of cool. I like, for example, you could say, it's just like a ward. No, it's not. You don't have to go there. You don't have to drop the item. You can just simply do it from afar, from wherever. Also, there's no cooldown. You can scan 2 spots at the same time without any time in between. So if you're not sure what your opponent's doing, tack, tack, crystal ball, there we go, you know. Can, of course, be underwhelming. Yep, but those are items, and that can happen. I think it's almost a net plus to do it so without a risk.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's like very risky either. I think it's going to be similar to me as Sentry Wards are, because a lot of people, and I do understand why they think Sentry Wards are way too powerful at certain points, but it can also be a very underwhelming item. Like if you actually know what's happening, you're on the defensive maybe. Okay, you see that point of the map, but there's actually like games where even if you see what the guy is doing, like it won't change what you're going to respond anyways. And that's not like, at least Crystal Ball gives you opportunity to check out like certain spots, right? And expo checking, I think, is like, it can be super powerful for.
Yeah. Because
if you're a human, you get level 3 AM, you're running across Night Elf base. If you know there's an expo building, you'll just go and cancel that, right? If you don't, you have to like gamble on it being there, and if it isn't there, it feels super bad, because then you lost a lot of time. So it can be good, but yeah, like it's going to be hit or miss, which some items are, which I think is fine. It's a bit of an RNG in this game. That's okay.
Also was my idea, and I posted it on Twitter, and I got 23 likes for it, Dondo.
With the big boys now.
Yeah, kinda. Twitter millionaire. Is that it? Are we done?
Did we go through the Fire Lord?
Oh
stuff?
yeah, Fire Lord. True, you're right. Fire Lord has been buff nerfed or nerf buffed. What is it?
Nerf buffed. Because we wrote the Incinerate change first, so it's nerf buffed. No, it's nerfed actually. I mean,
isn't it buff nerfed?
Yeah, I mean it's better than it is in live, but it's worse than it was in the former iteration of the PTR.
Yeah.
I mean it's a lot better than it is live, but it's worse than in the PTR. So Incinerate mana is now reduced from 6 to 3. We saw in some of the weekly cup games that Incinerate after even from the get-go, but especially like after level 3 or when you hit, especially when you hit level 4, you never drain mana anymore. It just kept up with the same as the regen rate of the Fire Lord more or less. So it was basically like a free spell. And the lava splits just in the early game was insane. Like with 9, you could get 8 lava spawns from like one single creep camp. So I think this toning down these buffs is good. I think we originally suggested that Incinerate maybe should not go lower than 4. But I mean, we can try 3 now. It's still the Fire Lord with its built-in weaknesses, so maybe it doesn't matter that much. And I really like that they reduced the lava spawn split, because that could be super problematic in a lot of situations. Maybe they can reduce it to 12 now. It reduced all the way to 9. But yeah, 13.
I mean, they thought it's 12. Why not make it 12, right?
Yeah.
It was kind of odd.
Tried to test the actual value they wanted to test,
Yeah, we'll see if that's too little. 9 was definitely too much. So, yeah, right direction. Volcano, also the damage is not 150 anymore, but 125. Can't really do that much damage with that, I guess. Okay.
Also, there's some personal experience. I think yesterday I faced a level 9 Fire Lord in a game.
It's fun, huh?
I'm kind of glad that Volcano didn't do 150 damage the time my whole army and 3 heroes got stunned.
Why didn't you just hammer him?
Well, I did win the game eventually with 3 heroes and a 100-foot army, but...
Look at this guy bragging about his ladder performance since he's playing again.
No, I think the other guy did a lot better than I did. I kind of like, he played any other hero would win that game 10 times over, so I know. So I mean, Fire Lord is still a bit of a niche with these changes. I think if you actually want to see more as like a second hero overall and stuff like that, you need a bigger rework. So yeah, but I don't mind these changes as they are now. But they were too good for what they were earlier, because it just made them situationally super bonkers, basically.
So I will give the thumbs up, thumbs down to the added and modified changes with PTR 1.36.1 version 3. And then maybe you can give them a direction of what is still left to do. So I say militia duration reduced, nice. Bash bonus damage reduced, nice. Bash stun duration increased, reverted, nice. Bash chance reduced, reverted, nice. Devotion aura, the way is the right one. It's still unnecessary for me. Priest, both changes, nice. Archmage, strength per level, nice. Paladin movement speed, not nice. Mana burn range reduced. No. Don't do that. Remo might have said so. We don't. Listen to us. Mana flare, max damage, nice. Mark of the Talon, nice. Narrow Tower Frost attack, nice. Dreadlord movement speed, we'll see. Spirit Walker nerfing the buff, nice. Walker Adept upgrade nerfing the buff, nice. Tauren build time, no hard feelings, but can't probably break anything. So it's a solid try. Firelord, nice, with maybe needs a bit more mana and a bit lower split. So like between middle and up. Crystal Ball from me, nice. Net win, nice. Ring of Protection, as we said, move it to level 2. Remove the +4, and then we're fine. Claws, I don't like it, but other people have different opinions on this. I think it was a nice power level for the rest. Periapt, nice. Frost armor slow on creeps, nice. Reverting talent cost, super duper nice. I love this. This is really good. Immolation damage change reverted, nice. Raised dead cost reduced, nice. So what they do is in general pretty good. In most cases, very good. In some other cases that Mr. Dondolare will now sum up, they have a lot of work to do.
Yeah, I'm just assuming they're going to revert to Demon Hunter change, but if they're like Mana Burn change, if they don't, this becomes even more difficult. But let's assume they revert to Demon Hunter Mana Burn change. I think things they could do further. Start with Immo at level and with 5 mana, but okay, that's one thing. Look at ghouls, make ghouls slightly weaker for their power spike. They're super impactful in all matchups. They're super good against Night Elf. You can try to do changes and find the perfect values, but at least they need changes, both in timing and in damage output. And the last change I would say for Undead is, unfortunately, maybe a small nerf as well. Reduce the slow on Lich. I still think that Nova effect, especially on units, is just super insane on level 3. Like 8 seconds slow. That will also make it a bit easier for the human change I think you should do. Well, at least one of them. Is to reduce Sundering Blades, because otherwise I think Undead Human will get pretty bad if you also reduce Lich, Slow, and Ghouls. And lastly, Human is looking pretty good with these changes, I think, or maybe a bit strong. Don't do more buffs to Human. Human have buff now on the list. Maybe try to start looking at, maybe there's some things we can reduce a bit.
If it would be down to me, list of changes that still needs to be introduced. Remove Sundering Blades, nerf Ghoul Frenzy, remove the Demon Hunter Mana Burn stuff, and maybe a new item. I wrote down the list of items that are in the campaign, in the editor, that could still be used. And if you find something that gives us a little bit of mix of stats that we don't have yet. For example, a smaller rune bracelet that can be found earlier, a smaller Sobi mask, something that maybe doesn't do too much to armor because we have so many armor already, but stuff like that. That would be nice. There's a list out there on Reddit. Take some stuff that's not too crazy and try to put it in. And then we'll
I'll add one more thing, by the way, Neo.
Okay.
I have to. Just because it is in our suggestions, we sent them. They think they should be available anywhere. So if you're wondering, guys, the details. But I think finding a way to make since we're removing Sundering Blades, maybe we make Lich Nova slow a bit less powerful with ghouls as well. Like if you do all those things, maybe find a way, and that's our suggestion in general, to tweak a bit how the Banshee thing works, right? Make the possession more visible is our suggestion. We showed how that can be done. And also not make it undispellable anymore, because it just totally just messes up the Undead Mirror matchup, which is now just Master Story.
True. Or just make destroyers unable to dispel anti-magic shield. That would be.
If you insist on keeping it undispellable, I would say that's also a solution,
Yeah, please. Okay.
Cool.
That's it for today. I don't want a call-in show today. I'm getting too triggered by comments today.
Yeah, and I mean, I am at least, or always available in the DMs, so I might regret saying that, but it's fine. I think I get a lot of good feedback there, actually, so just let me know.
I don't want any DMs, except from Blizzard. If they want to pay me for our work here, then of course you're allowed to contact me. Please don't contact me today. I'm done. So have fun destroying yourselves on Twitter and on the Discords. Please just be civil as possible. Don't be too outraged. It's just a game for most of us. Be nice. Be reasonable. You won't be, but try. So thank you, Dondo. Thank you, Dondo, for joining me and providing great insight once again. And we see each other tomorrow for the Doobie Engine of Wonders Cup qualifier. That's going to be cool. Some gameplay and not just talkcraft. Take care, everybody.